Well, another very warm welcome back, and thanks for joining me once again here on Classic Dirt Bike TV, and of course thanks again for your continuing support of my channel with regards signing up and becoming a subscriber. Now, since my last video posting, we've had some very good feedback on the John Banks Merlin 500 Honda video that I posted recently, and that's a very rare machine, so thanks to each and every one of you for your continuing support and the comments that you made on that particular video. But of course we still have many more old dirt bikes to take a look at in the coming weeks and months here on my channel. Now, next up we're going to take a look at a bike that I captured in the racing paddock at the Westmoreland Golden Jubilee Scramble event that was held in Penrith in the summer of 21. Now, this bike was just one of the many nice bikes that I spotted in the paddock during my walkabout over the course of the 2 days. So without any further delay, let's just take a look at Sean McCrea's RM125 Twinshock Suzuki. Now, this quite nice little RM125 Suzuki was one of the very nice bikes that I spotted in the paddock when I was attending the Westmoreland Golden Jubilee Scramble event at Penrith in August of 2021, and this featured bike belongs to Sean McCrea, and this was only one of hundreds of very nice bikes that I came across over the course of the 2 days that I attended the event. Now, as you've probably guessed already, this bike is not an original RM125 race bike. In fact, Sean told me that this is far from it, because it's actually been made up of many different parts from other Suzuki models. So in that respect, it's a bit of a Suzuki mongrel and a bit of a Twinshock hybrid. Now, when Sean first put the bike together, it was never supposed to be a Suzuki from any particular year, as he just wanted to build a bike that would make a good vintage Twinshock racer. And looking here at the finished article, I think he's certainly achieved that particular goal. Now, beginning with the bike's frame, now I haven't a clue what model of Suzuki this chassis is from, but as you can see, there's been some serious chopping and welding of this frame, and there's been at least 5 or 6 connections made on this left side frame rail alone. But then again, maybe even the chassis is not a Suzuki frame at all, and it's been chopped and welded purely to accommodate that 125 two-stroke motor. But I'm not sure that I myself would be too confident at doing big jumps on this bike with all of the connections in the frame, although I suppose as long as the bike's raced on a relatively flat track, it should be fine. Now, with regards to the bike's motor, this is of course without doubt a Suzuki RM125 engine, possibly from around 1979 or maybe even 1980, but of course it can't be mistaken for a 1981 motor, because Suzuki of course turned to water cooling in that particular year. But as I remember, these were super quick little two-strokers, and I think they had a 6-speed gearbox as I remember, and a standard wet multi-plate clutch, and their fuel was usually fed through a little McCrea carburetor. Now, I'm sure that Suzuki also used electronic ignition to make the sparks for these 125s, and overall these were a very good, reliable little power plant that developed a reasonable amount of power for its small compact size. And again, at this time Suzuki were using a certain amount of magnesium in the engine casing's construction, as you can see here in this clutch cover on the right hand side of the motor. But they were still buzzy little screamers, these 125s, and if you were prepared to keep the throttle pinned in its mid-range, which was the sweet spot of this engine, and dance up and down on that gearbox, you could still achieve decent results from this tight, compact Twinshock racer. Now once again, these top and bottom triple clamps are from another model of Suzuki, but what particular model we don't know, but Sean certainly kept no secret, saying that the bike was made from many different models of Suzuki bikes, although we'll just have to take his word that these are Suzuki items. Now once again, these front forks are from another Suzuki model, from another race bike, but you have to say that this bike certainly got quite a long pair of legs for a smaller 125, although the wheels and the hubs certainly look like they're proper Suzuki items, and these old style drum brakes still had some decent stopping power to slow down this little 125 Screamer, and because of course this was still the late 1970s, it would be another year or two before Suzuki then began fitting hydraulic disc brakes to their off-road machines. Now when we move to the bike's back end, Sean's spared no expense here, and he's opted to go for a pair of Swedish-made Öhlins piggyback shocks, and as you're aware, these Öhlins units are top quality, although of course other brands are available naturally, but these Öhlins suspension units can be custom made for any type of off-road motorcycle and can be engineered to suit the rider's particular weight, but they're also very highly tunable for rebound and damping, and of course fully rebuildable as well. Now again, a nice alloy box section swing arm on Sean's machine, and of course the early RMs did have steel swing arms fitted, and as I recall, I think it was around 1979 that Suzuki then switched to using these lighter alloy swing arms on their RM motocrossers, but these were still pretty strong units for their day, and when she coupled them up with a decent set of Twinshock suspension systems, they worked very well. Now when it comes to the actual fuel tank on Sean's creation, you'll certainly not find this kind of design on any other model of Suzuki RM, because this was a bespoke alloy fuel tank that Sean actually built himself, and I have to say it's certainly one of the more outstanding features on this particular bike. Now I'm assuming that because the frame's been altered, that an original Suzuki tank wouldn't fit on this chassis, so that's more than likely why Sean's fired up his alloy welder to create a one-off special part to fit this frame. But it's a nice piece of engineering, and certainly it adds a bit of class to this quite unique motorcycle. Now once again, the bike's exhaust expansion chambers, not an original Suzuki part, and it even looks like this again could have been made by Sean himself, because as you can gather, Sean certainly likes to get his welder out and stick pieces of metal together, although I'm pretty sure that this alloy tailpipe at the back is just an off-the-shelf motocross part, and not something that Sean's built himself. Although even if this little RM125 is not an original example of a Suzuki off-roader, you have to give Sean the credit for coming up with the idea and building his very own interpretation of what his RM Suzuki should look like, because this is still a very nice looking piece of kit, even although it is a bit of a mishmash of various RM bike parts, because your first impressions when you see this bike, and in particular taking a look at that nice alloy fuel tank, you'd be forgiven for initially thinking that this might even be one of those Suzuki works machines, because back in the day the factories did build some special fuel tanks for these racers. But for me personally, I quite like this home-built creation that Sean's put together. And here we have the very proud owner of this particular RM125, Sean McCrea, and these pictures of Sean were taken just before he took the bike onto the track at the Westmoreland Golden Jubilee Scramble event in the summer of 2021. Well, there you have it, another quite nice looking old Twinshock racer. Not a fully original bike, of course, but nonetheless a nice little Twinshock race bike built by Sean McCrea. Okay, coming up in my next video posting, we're going back to the Rob Hughes classic dirt bike collection. Now, as you know, I've posted quite a few nice bikes from Rob's collection in the past, and we're going to take a look at another one of his beautiful CCM bikes, and this time round we're going to take a look at this 1980 CCM bike. Now, many CCM aficionados regard these 1980 bikes as some of the best looking CCMs of their time, so in my next video posting we're going to take a detailed look at this beautiful Twinshock racer. So if you've not already done it, then I do hope you will subscribe to my channel, and that way of course you won't miss out on any future videos that I post here on my channel. But until the next time, of course, everybody continue to watch what you're doing out there when you're riding those old vintage race bikes, and we'll all get together here very soon to talk about more vintage iron right here on your #1 and favourite classic dirt bike TV channel.